We have been fortunate to have had the opportunity to participate in the process of the creation of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. Our work as interns assisting Dr. Judy Kariansky, who chaired the Psychology Coalition of NGOs at the United Nations, in her advocacy for the inclusion of mental health and well-being in this unprecedented agenda, has led to an educational experience and a growth process unlike any other. Dr. Judy, in particular, proved to be one of the leaders of civil society, relentlessly advocating for mental health and well-being with dozens of member states, while at the same time collaborating with civil society members to produce joint statements on the health goal. Under her leadership, we were many times pushed beyond our comfort zones as we only had a small team and were put in a position to contribute to building and advancing our momentum. We all had to approach high-level representatives on numerous occasions on behalf of Dr. Judy, an experience that was nerve-wracking for most of us. This led us all to grow as individuals, personally and professionally, and nurture the sentiment that we really devoted ourselves to making this campaign the success that it turned out to be. The following are our personal accounts of lessons and growth we learned and underwent during our time advocating for mental health at the UN as interns and youth representatives of psychology-related NGOs accredited at the United Nations.
When I began my internship with Dr. Judy Kariansky in the summer of 2014 through the Smith College Praxis Internship Program, I was given the opportunity to participate in the drafting of the Sustainable Development Goals, an international agenda that directly impacts youth. It was unbeknown to me that the mental health campaign that my team of youth interns contributed to, under Dr. Judy Kariansky, would later directly impact and shape the future of people worldwide and serve as a successful model for youth engagement. There are 3 key lessons that I learned during my time as a youth advocate. These lessons are as follows: seek information, be flexible, and build and maintain friendships. The first lesson, seek information, speaks to my experience networking the foyer outside of conference rooms, in the missions of various member states, in the cafeteria buildings, and even in a taxi in a foreign country. At the UN, it is critical for youth advocates to absorb information and to ask thoughtful questions. The second lesson, be flexible, comes from my experience working with a large group of people in an environment that is constantly changing. During the post-2015 agenda negotiations, the language in the document was a work in progress. It was therefore imperative to quickly adapt to new situations, let go of the old plans, and immediately revise and move forward. While it is important to be flexible and open to revision, it is also important to remain firm on areas that are non-negotiable. The final lesson, build and maintain friendships, is perhaps the most important lesson. In silos, we cannot achieve our full potential. Together, alongside friends from various member states such as Palau, Vietnam, and Benin, we were able to harness the support and use the momentum to drive our campaign. Collaboration fosters greater ties and connects friends.
From the first day I started interning with Dr. Judy Kariansky, I was plunged headfirst into her advocacy campaign about mental health and well-being at the United Nations. As a psychology and sociology major at Hunter College, the lessons I learned were invaluable to prepare me for my future career. We met for the first time minutes before a meeting that she had set up with the mission of Angola to invite them to support the inclusion of mental health and well-being in the open working group meetings during my first internship year, and then during the intergovernmental negotiation meetings the next year for the document of the Sustainable Development Goals that would be submitted to the General Assembly for the adoption by all UN member states. This was the first of many similar meetings that I participated in, for which myself and other interns had to conduct research and write reports about the current state of mental health in the countries with whom we were meeting. These reports included statistics about mental health prevalence and the number of available mental health professionals, as well as government policies. We spent hours preparing packets containing key materials, statements, videos, and supportive documentation from the Psychology Coalition of NGOs accredited at the UN, as well as from Dr. Judy's involvement at the UN and projects around the world. This preparation often carried over into the late hours of the night, requiring dedication on my part to do whatever it takes to put us in the best position to have successful meetings. Seeing how helpful the packets and reports proved to be during our meetings with member states highlighted Dr. Judy's lesson that you can never be too prepared. The high-level delegates saw that we were committed to our advocacy and value their support. Also, our country-specific reports educated them about the state of mental health in their countries. Another valuable lesson was to build strong relationships and partnerships with UN member states. For example, Dr. Judy partnered with Ambassador Dr. Caleb Otto of the Mission of Palau to the UN, who importantly is also a public health physician. We met with Ambassador Otto many times in his UN office to plan the advocacy, and then he sent the position papers to his colleagues in other missions. A Friends of Mental Health and Wellbeing group was formed to engage missions to participate and strategize in the campaign. I participated in these meetings that were attended by delegates from regions all around the world, including Vietnam, Cyprus, Greece, Benin, Japan, Afghanistan, Costa Rica, Israel, Qatar, and many others. All this hard work led to success, as many of these countries made statements in the intergovernmental negotiations to support mental health and well-being. During this process, it was an educational experience for me to have many strategy discussions with Dr. Judy, who respected my opinions and mentored me about how to do such high-level advocacy. She taught me that whatever has to be done must be done to the highest perfection possible, no matter what it takes. I also learned the importance of processing the events of the day, reevaluating your strategy, and relishing victories. This was enjoyable to do with the team of Dr. Judy's other student interns, who were also dedicated and invested in the campaign. This was evident in how often we stayed in the conference room where the negotiations had happened until midnight, as the only ones left in the room, with the exception of the cleaning staff, who miraculously never chased us out. Another valuable lesson is that quick action and teamwork makes things happen. A perfect example was when Dr. Judy and I traveled to Japan for the 3rd UN World Conference on Disaster Risk Reduction. During a member state meeting, we learned that there was a rare opportunity for civil society members to make a short intervention. Seizing the moment, Dr. Judy instructed me to immediately go up to the front of the room to inquire about how to add her name to the list, while she would quickly draft her statement. Within 10 minutes, I had gotten her name in the list, and miraculously she was selected and delivered her statement advocating to have resilience specifically defined not only as infrastructural, but also as psychosocial, to help people cope after trauma. Ultimately, I learned to absorb as much as possible from my surroundings at the UN, and most importantly, from my mentor and supervisor, Dr. Judy. Being the son of the permanent representative of the Republic of Benin to the UN, who was very supportive of our campaign, allowed me to have access to an ambassador extremely involved in creating the agenda, since he represented in my home country of Benin and over 40 nations from all over the world, in his role as chair of the least developed countries. During this entire process, I have undergone great personal and professional growth. I feel that I'm now more than prepared and qualified to contribute to any advocacy about mental health anywhere, and I will move forward in my career with greater confidence than ever.
When I interned as a youth representative at the United Nations with Dr. Judy Kiriansky in the summer of 2015, arranged through Smith College where I was a student, I developed habits and learned many lessons that continue to help me thrive as a budding professional. With notebook always in hand, I expanded my organizational skills as it was necessary to keep track of names, numbers, and invaluable statements noted during UN intergovernmental negotiations or conferences, advocating for the inclusion of mental health and well-being in the Sustainable Development Goals agenda for 2030. I was able to further develop my networking and campaigning skills. It was with Dr. Judy's mentorship that I learned to effectively do so, and amongst important UN delegates no less. For example, I learned to confidently approach high-ranking UN delegates. These included the Ambassador of Korea, my home country, and the Deputy Ambassador of Portugal, where I had done a semester study abroad. I learned that these important people were actually receptive to meet me and hear what I had to say about our advocacy. I also learned how to organize high-level meetings. These were meetings between the International Association of Applied Psychology and the European Federation of Psychologists Associations, with delegates from the missions of Ireland, Netherlands, Germany, and Brazil to the UN. Through these experiences, I blossomed from a shy, soft-spoken, and hesitant girl to a comparatively confident, articulate woman with a newfound joy in taking initiative. I also developed my writing skills since I was entrusted to produce multiple reports covering various UN-related events without hesitation and on a continual basis. These included my reports on the Liberian Transition Conference at the International Peace Institute, the summer 2015 UN Youth Assembly, and the Nelson Mandela International Day Prize Ceremony. In addition, I had the opportunity to attend the Ocean Symposium, which was an extraordinary opportunity for me to witness the incredible work about the environment that I hope to do in my career as a passionate environmentalist. I had the honor to interact with Ambassador Otto of the Mission of Palau to the UN, who was a government leader in the successful advocacy about the SDGs to protect the oceans, conserve the environment, and create a critical link between the people and the planet. Throughout my internship, I had the phenomenal opportunity to observe the intergovernmental negotiations about the agenda and participate in the advocacy to include mental health and well-being. Since Ambassador Otto of Palau partnered with Dr. Judy in her role as chair of the Psychology Coalition of NGOs accredited at the UN in our campaign, it was exciting to become called Team Palau. We were all smiles when we saw not just one, but multiple mentions in the final draft. One mention was secured at the very last minute, a big lesson that you have to work hard and also persevere until the very end to reach big success. The results will positively impact my own and future generations. During this internship, I expanded many skills and learned a global perspective that are helping me to navigate myself in my career and the world. A big reward is that the fear that I once held has been replaced with steady confidence.
The first day of any new job is bound to be an intoxicating experience, but my first day working as an intern with the International Association of Applied Psychology at the United Nations headquarters in New York took this to another level. Arriving in late May, I'll never forget walking into Conference Room 4 and feeling the buzz in the air as delegates settled in the final day of Round 5 of the intergovernmental negotiations around what was then known as the Post-2015 Development Agenda. Talk about being phoned in at the deep end, I thought to myself, while taking my seat as co-chairs Ambassador Kamau of Kenya and Ambassador Donahue, my fellow Irishman, gave their opening remarks. Over the course of the next 5 months, my time as part of Dr. Judy's UN team would prove to be an initially daunting, but in time, richly rewarding and thoroughly unforgettable experience. As I quickly learned, one of the key demands of the role was the ability to adapt to a wide variety of situations and engage with relevant stakeholders across all echelons of the UN system, from fellow NGO members and civil society advocates right up to permanent representatives and even ministers of state. Can you walk to school and carrying your lunch at the same time, a favorite expression of Dr. Judy's, soon became my motto as I learned to juggle various demands, from attending UN conferences and events to drafting emails related to our advocacy and outreach efforts and relaying news of our activities via the IAAP UN Twitter account. A crucial thread running through all of this was our daily brainstorming sessions, or team huddles, as I like to call them. These could take place almost anywhere, in an office, over lunch at the UN, or even in the back of a cab. From all this, I learned from Dr. Judy's inimitable leadership style that was contagious, passion and enthusiasm for the UN's mission and the role of applied psychology in it, limitless energy, and being on the job from early morning into the late night. This was demonstrated in our partnership in the advocacy about mental health and well-being with Ambassador Caleb Otto of the Mission of Palau to the UN. Hours of consultation and careful editing led to Ambassador Otto drafting a letter that was circulated among his fellow ambassadors, outlining our research, suggestions, and substantiation about psychological issues important for the outcome document. This collaborative group effort, in which I played a significant role, translated into high-level campaigning and ultimately fed into the document. This success was a real highlight of my internship. In fact, to borrow another of Dr. Judy's catchphrases, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, meaning how exciting and successful it was. Seeing the words about mental health and well-being in the final wording of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development is rewarding. And from a team perspective, hearing Ambassador Kamau single out Dr. Judy as one of the civil society representatives deserving special praise for her hard work and dedication was a welcome reward for her and our efforts. Overall, to reflect that I, a recent psychology graduate from across the Atlantic, was part of a progress that charts the outcome of sustainable development for the next 15 years and beyond gives me an immense feeling of pride and has spurred me on greatly in my personal and professional life.